Argentina did something very interesting last week, and most people missed it because they were looking at the astronauts. That is understandable. When human beings fly around the moon for the first time in more than 50 years, the crew tends to get the camera. Fair enough. Astronauts are dramatic. They have helmets, nerves of steel, and the sort of posture that makes the rest of us look like folded laundry. Yet one of the more important geopolitical details of Artemis II was not inside the Orion capsule. It was a small Argentine microsatellite named Atenia. Small is not the same as insignificant. History is full of little objects that change the shape of big systems. A key, a ring, a seal, a transistor, a treaty clause scribbled by some exhausted official at 2 in the morning. A ring. In space politics, tiny payloads can carry very large meanings. That is what happened here. Argentina became the only Latin American country with a satellite selected among the international payloads riding on Artemis II. Atenia was developed with support from Argentina's National Space Agency, CONAE, and researchers tied to Argentine universities. Its mission was technical on paper. It would test deep space radiation exposure and see whether weak GPS signals could still be used for navigation far beyond their usual environment. That sounds specialized because it is. It also happens to matter a great deal. The first thing to understand is that this was not merely a science story. It was a diplomatic story. The Artemis program is often described as a moon program. And that is true in the same way the British Empire was a boating project. The rockets and spacecraft are real. The missions are real. The engineering is real. Yet around all of that sits a political architecture. Artemis is also a way for the United States to gather countries into an American-led framework for the next era of space activity. So when Argentina joins Artemis II with Atenia, the event carries a message beyond the technical details. It says that Latin America is not locked out of the emerging lunar order. It says that Washington can still attract partners outside its usual Anglosphere and European orbit. And it says that a country often treated as economically unstable and politically erratic can still produce hardware worthy of a mission tied to one of the biggest space efforts on Earth. That matters because prestige is contagious. When nations see another country from their region step into a prestigious coalition, it changes the mental map. Space suddenly looks less like a club for permanent great powers and more like a ladder. A hard ladder, yes, a very expensive ladder. The kind of ladder that catches fire if you do the math wrong, yet still a ladder. Argentina, in that sense, has done something larger than launch a small spacecraft. It has shown that participation in deep space missions is not reserved to the old giants alone. There is also a second layer here, and it may be even more interesting. Atenia's mission involved testing navigation beyond Earth's usual satellite environment. That means asking whether GPS signals, weak and degraded at that range, can still help spacecraft orient themselves far from home. The satellite also studied radiation outside the protection of Earth's magnetic field. These are not random academic exercises. These are the practical problems that come with building a real cislunar presence. You cannot create lasting infrastructure around the moon if you do not know how to navigate cleanly, communicate reliably, and survive the radiation environment. That is why the payload matters. Great power competition in space is moving beyond symbolic flybys. The contest is slowly becoming about infrastructure, logistics, survivability, and standards. Whoever helps shape those standards helps shape the future order. That does not mean Argentina is suddenly about to dominate cislunar space. Let us keep both feet on the floor. It does mean Argentina inserted itself into the technical foundations of the next phase. And that is how smart middle powers operate. They do not need to beat the giants outright. They find leverage points. They become useful in one corner of the system. They contribute a sensor, a component, a launch site, a legal framework, a scientific niche, a manufacturing specialty, a set of engineers who know how to do one hard thing very well. Over time, that usefulness becomes influence. This is old statecraft in a new theater. The Romans would have understood it. So would the Venetians. So would every minor court that survived by making itself relevant to larger powers. Argentina is not planting a flag on the moon. It is doing something more realistic and, in its own way, more telling. It is proving that it can contribute to a high-prestige mission at the edge of deep space. Now there is also a domestic angle, and it is impossible to ignore. Argentina has gone through heavy budget pressure, including pressure on public institutions and science programs. That makes Atenea's appearance on Artemis 2 more striking. Reuters noted the budget cuts hitting CONAE under President Javier Milei's government, yet the country still produced a payload selected from proposals involving nearly 50 countries. That gives the story a slightly ironic flavor. Argentina managed to insert itself into the lunar age while operating under fiscal strain severe enough to make lesser bureaucracies curl into a decorative ball. This cuts two ways politically. On one side, the mission becomes proof that Argentine science and engineering still have serious capability despite austerity and national turbulence. On the other side, it raises an uncomfortable question. If a country can build something this meaningful under pressure, what could it do with continuity, confidence, and a state that stops treating long-range technical capacity like a luxury item? That is the deeper frustration in many countries outside the first rank. They have talent, they have scientists, they have engineers. What they often lack is durable national seriousness. Atenea is a glimpse of what seriousness looks like, even on a modest scale. And the symbolism here is rich. Argentina is not a country most people associate with lunar strategy. They think of debt crises, political swings, football, beef, and perhaps a few tragic economic charts that resemble ski slopes designed by pessimists. Yet this week, Argentina appeared in one of the central geopolitical theaters of the coming century. That alone should tell you something about the changing nature of power. Space is widening the map. It gives technologically capable nations new ways to matter. The old order sorted states mainly by land power, naval reach, industrial scale, and financial clout. Those things still matter deeply, yet space adds fresh categories. Sensor networks matter, communications architecture matters, precision manufacturing matters, niche scientific skill matters. The states that can insert themselves into these systems gain a kind of political altitude. Argentina has gained a little altitude here. Not enough to transform the world overnight. Nothing in geopolitics happens overnight except coups, and those tend to be untidy. Still, a country builds status by accumulating moments like this. A satellite rides a historic mission. Engineers prove themselves. Diplomatic ties deepen. New opportunities open. A nation's profile changes, degree by degree, until people realize it is no longer where they assumed it was. There is one more point worth making. This was the only Latin American satellite selected among the international payloads. That means the mission also has regional meaning. For the rest of Latin America, Atenea is a signal that participation in high-end space efforts is possible. It may stir ambition in universities, agencies, startups, and ministries across the region. It may also sharpen regional competition. States notice when a neighbor finds a way into the room. No country likes learning that the seating chart for the future was drawn without it. And from Washington's point of view, that is useful. The United States is not merely racing China to the moon. It is trying to build a coalition around its own model of space order. Every additional partner broadens legitimacy. Every technically credible participant helps normalize the idea that the American-led framework is the place where serious countries go if they want a future, beyond Earth. Argentina's presence strengthens that picture. So yes, Atnea is tiny. Tiny things can still announce the shape of an age. This one told us that the lunar contest is not limited to Washington, Beijing, and Moscow. It told us that Latin America has at least 1 foot in the door. It told us that Argentina still possesses scientific talent that can reach beyond Earth's magnetic shield and return useful data. And it told us that in the emerging politics of the moon, a secondary payload can become a first-rate symbol. That is the real lesson. The future is not built only by the countries that dominate headlines. It is also built by the countries that quietly make themselves necessary. A microsatellite here, a sensor there, a launch agreement somewhere else, and before long, a nation has threaded itself into the machinery of the next world. Argentina did not steal the show on Artemis 2. It did something better. It made itself part of the plot.